Story 1. In the remote highlands of Papua New Guinea, the Fore tribe lived almost completely isolated from the outside world for centuries. Surrounded by dense jungle and steep mountains that made travel nearly impossible. And within their culture, death was not an ending but a transformation. Because they believed the spirit of the dead must be absorbed by the living to keep the community strong. When a family member died, the body was carefully prepared and shared among relatives during the ritual meal, with women and children most often consuming the brain, because it was believed to contain the memories, wisdom, and soul of the deceased. And refusing this ritual was considered deeply disrespectful. By the early 20th century, a strange illness began spreading through the tribe, starting with shaking hands and unsteady walking, followed by uncontrollable laughter that sounded joyful but was filled with fear. And victims slowly lost the ability to speak, eat, or even sit upright. The Fore believed this sickness was caused by dark magic or enemy curses, so they responded by performing even more rituals, and knowingly spreading the disease further each time they honored another dead relative, turning love and grief into a deadly cycle. When scientists finally arrived, they discovered the disease called Kuru, caused by infectious proteins passed through cannibalism. And although the practice eventually stopped, thousands had already died, leaving behind one of the most chilling examples of how belief and tradition can silently destroy an entire people. Story 2. In the heart of ancient Mesoamerica, the Aztec Empire ruled through power, religion, and fear, believing the gods demanded constant nourishment in the form of human blood to keep the sun moving across the sky and prevent the world from ending. Warriors captured prisoners during ritual battles not to kill them immediately but to offer them alive to the gods, and during massive ceremonies atop towering stone temples. Victims were sacrificed in front of cheering crowds as priests removed their hearts. After the sacrifices, the bodies were not discarded, but instead carefully divided and distributed to elite families, warriors, and nobles, where the flesh was cooked and eaten during ceremonial feasts believed to transfer divine strength and favor. Spanish conquistadors later recorded scenes that horrified Europe, describing kitchens preparing human flesh like ordinary meat and comparing its taste to pork. Though some accounts were exaggerated to justify conquest and destruction of Aztec society, modern archaeology confirms that ritual cannibalism did exist, and while it was not practiced by the entire population, it reveals a civilization where religion, survival, and violence became inseparable, and where eating human flesh was seen not as savagery but as sacred duty. Story 3. Around 800 years ago, the ancestral Puebloans lived in the dry regions of what is now the American Southwest, building complex stone villages and relying heavily on agriculture in an environment where rain was never guaranteed. During periods of extreme drought, crops failed and food became scarce, and evidence from a site known as Cowboy Wash in Colorado suggests that something deeply disturbing may have happened when survival became impossible. Archaeologists discovered human bones that had been broken open, burned, and mixed with cooking tools, along with chemical traces consistent with cooked human flesh, indicating that bodies were processed in the same way animals were. Unlike ritual cannibalism tied to religion, researchers believe this was survival cannibalism driven by hunger, fear, and the collapse of social order, where neighbors may have turned on each other in moments of desperation. Although still debated, the evidence paints a terrifying picture of how even advanced societies can fall into unthinkable acts when resources disappear, reminding us that civilization is far more fragile than it appears.